Yeah. Sorry.
We're at the 2019 UIC Medicinal Cannabis Symposium in Tweed.
I'm here speaking with Brooke Taylor. How are you?
Morgan
Taylor. Wow, do I do that? Morgan Taylor, who's a patient. Now, Morgan, tell us a little bit about your history, and you have a particularly frustrating disease.
Yeah, so I have had Crohn's disease for 10 years now, since I was 12 years old. And I've got a relatively severe case of it, and I have tried pretty much every single medication there is on the market for Crohn's disease. The past 10 years that I've had Crohn's, and unfortunately, I've always suffered really severe side effects because of those medications.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are called biologics, which are immunosuppressant drugs. And they're very, very severe drugs, and they have a lot of the same side effects as, say, chemotherapy. So your immune system is suppressed. I got drug-induced lupus from one of them. I got an anaphylactic reaction to another one. They've made my hair fall out. I have osteoporosis now. So it's not sustainable long-term to be on a lot of these drugs. My parents did a lot of research. My mum kept finding that cannabis was a treatment for Crohn's disease, so we just decided to use it. And my parents started growing cannabis for me we really started looking into it in 2014, and in 2016 for the first time I had access to enough plant material to juice cannabis. So we found a lot of information online from a man called Dr. William Courtney, who says that juicing cannabis is a really great modality of using cannabis medicine, because you can get a huge amount of the healing cannabinoids in a dose and you don't suffer any of the psychoactive effects. So I started juicing, and within a month I felt better than I had in a really, really long time.
And this is still taking standard medical therapy?
No,
I wasn't
on medication, no.
Because it was intolerable?
Yeah. And then in December of 2017, my house was raided, and the police came in, took all of the plants, so I wasn't able to juice. It had taken a really long time for the plants to get big enough for me to start juicing. In fact, that day I was going to start juicing when the police came and raided. So not only was I sick, and also my sister suffers from Crohn's disease bad too, but we were having to deal with the court system.
Yeah.
And my father was facing a jail sentence for growing cannabis for me.
So this is the thing, is like to try and help you in our current legislative system, just to help you, your parents became criminals. Indeed, you became a criminal by taking the substance.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it felt. It felt like we were being criminalized for trying the one thing that actually helped me and gave me some kind of relief from the horrific disease I'd been suffering with from a huge percentage of my life.
How does that make you feel?
It was awful, and the raid is something I wouldn't wish on anybody, especially patients, because not only is having a disease horrible, having a chronic illness consumes your entire life, but having to go through the court system and feeling like a criminal is even worse, because the amount of stress that you're dealing with just makes your disease even worse. And it did. I ended up in hospital not long after the raid.
Okay, so was this because of a dobbing issue? Or?
Well, we still don't 100% know, but we're pretty much convinced that our neighbours could see the plants and they contacted the police.
Right, and
that's how they found out. And the police weren't expecting what they found. They thought it was going to be a typical drug bust, and then they got there and realised all they could find were medical supplies and medical cannabis, and they definitely didn't want to be there.
So this is the interesting thing. The police are bound to uphold the law.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the law tells them and directs them that you are a criminal.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of understanding. I've spoken with Mick Palmer, who was a previous commissioner of police, the federal police, and there is this facility to use judgment, to use restraint.
Hold discretion, yeah.
Discretionary action. So was there that facility? Did you know about that? Was it attempted?
Well, I think it's really about the case, you know. If they had, say the cops came over for a different reason, say, you know, the neighbours had called because we had a dog that was barking too loud and they came into the garden and saw them, then they could probably hold discretion, you know, if they saw my condition. But because they had been working, and we found out that they were monitoring us for months, so they were looking, they had photos of the garden and everything. So at that stage, they're not allowed to hold discretion because they even had a search warrant.
Right.
So you can't have a search warrant and have the amount of police that were there and they all just turn a blind eye. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But if it was another circumstance, then they probably would have.
What about being proactive and approaching the local commander? I understand is the appropriate person to approach and to say, look, I have this condition, we will be doing it, I am a criminal. Can you use discretionary power?
Well, that's in itself scary because you could put yourself out there and you could get a police officer that is very understanding and say, you know what, that's fine. If anything happens, we'll show discretion. But then you could have the opposite and they could say, well, no, we don't like what you're doing and come to your house anyway. So how do you know?
Yeah.
You know, unless you're friends with them or something, or you have personal connections, it's a very touchy subject.
So either way, it's a leap of faith, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And either way, it's stressful, and stress is one of the major triggers of another attack.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. So what do you wish would happen in the Australian landscape, and where do you wish it would happen? Do you think it needs to happen at the doctor level, at the politician level, state or federal?
I think all of it needs to be reformed, really. And
so it's a broken system.
Yeah, it is a very broken system, and it seems to be made in a way that makes it extremely hard for patients to access, and it looks like it's been made that way on purpose. And my dream is to have grow rights. I think that's a really important step, and it seems to be not being addressed at all. Grow rights, patient grow rights. Yeah, so we can grow our own plants and have access to our own medication.
I think that's a really powerful message, that one.
Yeah.
So with regards to treatment, you're saying juicing, and this is something that's commonly tossed up about a fear of using medicinal cannabis is impairment.
Yeah.
Driving, operating machinery, crashes, vehicle accidents, all that sort of thing. You said that it doesn't impair your facilities if you juice.
Yes, because cannabis in the raw form, the chemicals are completely different. So until cannabis is heated, say by smoking, making an oil, even having it in a tea or something like that, the chemicals a lot of people know about are THC and CBD. In the raw form, they had THCA and CBDA. It's the acid form. Yeah. So you're not actually getting any of the psychoactive effects that THC usually brings. And not only that, you can get a huge amount of the healing cannabinoids, whereas when you have THC, you have to, a lot of the time, build your way up because people can't. A lot of people, if you've never smoked or used cannabis, can't handle the effects at high dosages.
So with juicing, obviously you're taking it orally, and do you tend to use it in nutritious foods by itself?
So what I do is I just pick it straight from the plant, have 30 mils 3 times a day, and that's all I'm doing.
Pick it straight from the plant and make
a juice. So I use a cold press juicer. You have to have certain types of juices because it is quite a dry plant. You have to be able to extract as much as you can, otherwise it's wasting it. So you can't just use a normal juicer. It has to be a slow press, masticating one.
Morgan, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story today. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
I really implore doctors, legislators, politicians, these are your constituents. These are the people that you should be caring about. We need to act, change the law so that people like Morgan can access their medicine and have a better outcome for their condition.
Thanks,
you for
Morgan. Having me today. Thanks.
This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook.